The last week of October. The sky over New England always takes on a strange, listless gray around this time, as if the sun itself is trying to avoid this town. Daniel Harrow slowly pulled his car to a stop in front of the old house. It looked exactly like the pictures. Big, silent, and unsettlingly alive. He'd gotten it for nearly half the market price. The realtor had blamed it on a bad market, but Daniel knew the truth. Nobody wanted to live in this house. People said it was haunted. He didn't believe in ghosts. As he stepped out of the car, a cold gust of wind snaked down his throat. Somewhere in the distance, a crow cawed, a lonely, grating sound. Daniel almost smiled. A haunted house. Seriously, he grabbed his bag from the passenger seat and walked towards the heavy oak door. He pushed it open, and it let out a long, drawn-out creak that seemed to echo through the empty halls. As he stepped inside, he froze. The house was empty, yes, but not entirely. A thick layer of dust coated the floor, but in certain places, it was disturbed. There were clean patches, pathways, as if someone had been walking here. Daniel frowned. Rats, probably, he muttered, trying to convince himself. That first night, everything was quiet. Almost. The first sound came at exactly 17 in the morning, a soft thump from upstairs. Daniel's eyes snapped open. He sat bolt upright in bed, his heart hammering against his ribs. The room was pitch black. He held his breath, listening. Silence. He must have imagined it. He lay back down, pulling the covers up to his chin, and then he heard it again. Thump. Thump. It sounded like footsteps, slow and deliberate, pacing on the floor directly above him. A cold dread began to seep into his bones, but he fought it down. It's an old house, he told himself. The wood is just settling. He forced himself out of bed. As he started for the door, he noticed his hands were trembling. He made his way to the stairs, each step creaking under his weight. At the top of the landing, he peered down the long, dark corridor. All the bedroom doors were closed. All of them, except for one. The very last door at the far end of the hallway was moving, swinging back and forth, ever so slightly, as if someone was gently pushing it from the other side. His throat went dry, but he forced his legs to move forward. Slowly, step by agonizing step. When he finally reached the door, he held his breath, stretched out a shaking hand, and pushed it open. The room was empty. Completely empty, but the air inside was freezing, an unnatural, biting cold that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. His eyes scanned the room, and then he saw it. There on the dusty floor were new footprints. They were small, very small. The footprints of a child. Daniel felt a knot of pure terror tighten in his stomach, because the footprints led from the doorway to the very center of the room, and then they just stopped. They didn't turn around. They didn't lead anywhere else. They just ended. After that night, everything changed. The house seemed to wake up when the sun went down. He would hear faint whispers that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Sometimes there would be a single, sharp knock on his bedroom door in the middle of the night, and always the soft, phantom footsteps from upstairs. But the real horror began on the fourth night. Daniel was deep in sleep when he suddenly felt a presence. He sensed someone was standing right beside his bed, watching him. He tried to open his eyes, to scream, but he couldn't. His body was completely he could feel the weight of his own breath, heavy and panicked in his chest. Then, a voice, a child's voice, whispered right next to his ear. "Why? Are you in my room?" Pure terror shot through him, but he couldn't make a sound. He felt the presence by his bed lean down, closer and closer to his face. A wave of intense cold washed over him, so frigid it felt like it was burning his skin. And then, just as suddenly as it began, the pressure was gone. Daniel gasped sitting up in bed, drenched in a cold sweat. The room was empty. There was no one there. But as his eyes adjusted to the dim light, he saw it. There, on the pillow right next to his head, pressed into the fabric, was the perfect, tiny handprint of a child. Daniel couldn't take it anymore. The next morning, he drove to the town's records office. Desperate for answers, he spent hours sifting through dusty archives, finding nothing. Then, buried deep in a box of old local newspapers from the 1980s, he found it. The headline from 1987 sent a fresh wave of ice through his veins. Mysterious death of child in local house. His hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold the brittle paper. He forced himself to read. The article was about a 7-year-old girl named Alice. She had lived in this very house. One night, she vanished without a trace from her bedroom. 3 days later, her parents found her. She was inside that same room at the end of the upstairs hall. The door had been locked from the inside, and according to the police report, there were small, unexplained footprints on the dusty floor. Footprints that ended abruptly in the middle of the room. Daniel's head was spinning. He felt like he was going to be sick. Just then, the old librarian who had been watching him from his desk spoke, his voice low and raspy. "You're the one who bought the Harrow place, aren't you?" Daniel looked up, meeting the man's gaze. There was a strange, knowing pity in his eyes. The old man leaned forward slightly. "People who live in that house," he sighed. "Slowly, they never stay for long." That night was his last. Daniel had made his decision. He was leaving. He packed a single bag, throwing in only the essentials. Everything else could stay. With his car keys clutched tightly in his hand, he started for the front door, not even bothering to look back. He was just a few feet away when he heard it. Thump. That familiar, soft sound from upstairs. Daniel froze, his hand hovering over the doorknob, and then he heard the voice. A girl's voice, no longer a whisper, but clear and close. So close, it sounded like she was standing right behind him. "You are leaving?" His entire body turned to ice. He couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Against every instinct screaming at him to run, he slowly turned around. There, standing in the deep shadows at the top of the staircase, was a figure. It was small, still, and shrouded in darkness. He couldn't make out a face, only 2 pale white eyes that seemed to glow in the gloom. The car keys slipped from his numb fingers and clattered onto the floor. The small figure on the stairs tilted its head, a slow, unnatural movement, and then it spoke again, its voice echoing in the silent house. "You live here now." In that instant, every single door in the house slammed shut with a deafening, unified crack. The lights flickered once, then died, plunging everything into absolute, suffocating darkness. 3 weeks later, the police received a call from a concerned neighbor. They broke down the front door of the old house. It was just as Daniel had first found it. Empty, silent, dusty. But when they checked the last room at the end of the upstairs hall, they found something new. On the floor were 2 sets of footprints. One was large, a man's. The other was small, a child's. And both sets of prints walked side by side to the center of the room, where they both, impossibly, just ended.